I'm Toya Brasky from Galveston Psychic Paranormal Researcher. Tonight, I wanted to just share with you more about my breast surgery um, updates and what I've learned from my research. I'm never embarrassed to talk about my breast surgery or what I've been through because this is how we all learn. I hope that sharing my information helps someone else's cases. And remember that when I'm talking about breast surgery or scars, I'm referring to my own feelings about the scars. I don't mean to hurt anyone else's feelings. Just for me, I'm explaining the way that I feel regarding my body and my image. So please don't let anything that I say offend you. So let me start with saying that please do your research, because very often we go into a doctor's office and we are afraid to ask questions. Many times we're intimidated and we think, oh, I shouldn't ask that because I might offend the doctor, or I shouldn't disagree with that